Hello, I want to talk about death. Bum bum bum. I think about death a lot. Why do people die? And what happens after you die? I don't know. No one does. We can describe the process of aging and make certain predictions, but we don't really know why it happens or even what it is. Anyone who gives you definitive answers to these questions is probably lying. Death might have been the very start of philosophy. It was certainly the start of religion, the sudden realization that one day you and everyone you know will just sort of stop. People say that the only two things that are certain in life are death and taxes. But there are places, lots of places, with zero tax. And death is just a jaundiced and narrow focus word for change. So the only thing you can rely on, absolutely, is change. And if that's true, surely the only possible conclusion is keep moving forward. There's a bunch of different ways you can take that, and they're probably all fine. So I'm very aware that I might die at any second. I'm 41. The longer you go with the age, the more likely it is that something's going to kill you. I'm also aware that if I die tomorrow, someone's going to look at the stuff I've put online and be, wow, this is amazing. He had no idea he was going to die, and look what happened. Yeah, I did. I knew. I'm going to die at some point. And to be honest, I'm more worried about the quality control than I am about someone thinking I'm a bad person, so whatever. I'm fine with dying. I'm not afraid of it. Some people are afraid of dying, and I don't get that. Why would you be afraid of Socrates? I read Socrates when I was a teenager before I had to for exams. I was just reading it for the fun. You can read Socrates for the crack, by the way. It's a lot of fun. The dialogues, I mean, not the heavy stuff. The dialogues are hilarious sometimes. But he said, why would I be afraid of death when I don't know what's going to happen after I die? It's an odd thing to be afraid of something when you can't identify what the fear is. And people who are afraid of heights, they don't want to go up high. People who are afraid of spiders do not want to be put close to a spider. Or people who are afraid of death, they're like, you don't have like, it seems an odd thing to be afraid of. So, and he's right, it makes no sense. So, what are they afraid of? Being extinguished? But then why would you care? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, I read that and it made sense to me, and since I read that, I haven't been afraid of death, so I don't care. Anyway, I've done everything I really want to do. The things I wanted to do is I wanted to live in a foreign country. I wanted to live with different types of people and live in a different way. I wanted to write a lot, which in later years turned into keeping a bunch of blogs on things I was interested in. A lot of the blogs I have like 5 followers, and I don't really care, because my whole thing with the blogs I write is I want to write something that I would want to read. That's pretty much it. Like, this is going to sound enormously wanky, but I do, like, sometimes I'll write a load of stuff for a blog and forget about it for like a year, and I'll come back to it and I'll just read through it for fun, because I write stuff that I want to read. I do understand that sounds wanky, but I don't care, because I'm thinking that, like, if I want to read it, then maybe at least one other person somewhere might want to read it too. There's always a danger, I think, when you're creating art, of sounding wanky when you say, yeah, I like that. I'm proud of something that I did. It's much easier to say, oh, once I've painted a picture, I can never look at it. Like, actors are always saying that in the movies, Oh, I did this movie. Oh, I can never look at myself acting on screen. It's painful. Man, if I was an actor, I would have the original print of everything I've ever been in, and I'd watch them every weekend. That's why I'm not an actor. So I've done a lot of stuff. So that's the blogs. Not a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. A lot of stuff that I'd actually want to do. I wanted to... Yeah, I'm not going to... I probably shouldn't say that out loud, never mind. And I'm in the middle of writing a book, 2 books. And I've always wanted to write a book, and I'm doing that. I don't know how long it's going to take, and it doesn't matter. The point is I'm doing it, so I'm happy. Like Like, I'm not the kind of person who'd want to, go bungee jumping or. It seems like a waste of my time. I don't know how to prove anything. I think a lot of the things about bungee jumping is you're proving to yourself that you can do it. Well, I know I can do it, so I don't care enough. It would mean nothing to me. Jumping out of an airplane would increase my heart rate one bit because I wouldn't give a shit. If I splatted on the ground or if I landed, it wouldn't matter to me. You have to care, like. So I'm alright with dying. You can play this. If I die tomorrow, you can play this back and say, "Oh, he was okay with it. Yeah, he was fine. Everything's fine. Everybody calm down." So this is going to be about death. Is this going to be uplifting and lighthearted? No. No, it's not. But is it going to be entertaining and maybe informative? Also, no. I'm just a guy on the internet. Whatever pops into my head is what's going to happen. So, let's kick it off. What is the best way to die? General consensus indicates that the best way to die is peacefully in your sleep, which I would agree with. I remember watching a public announcement about smoke alarms on the television years ago, and the two of us were watching this, and there was a house on fire, and it was very dramatic. This must have been the 1980s. Those people asleep inside the house. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, surely if your house was on fire, you'd wake up. But the ad immediately answered this by stating openly that during house fires, people die from smoke inhalation before they even have a chance to wake up, and that's how people die in fires. Most of them from smoke inhalation in their sleep. So my dad said, "Wait a minute," he said, "they die peacefully in their sleep." And I said, "Yeah, but And then he said, "That's perfect, that's what you want. That is the best way to die. That is the general consensus best way to die." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure that's the takeaway they were looking for, but And he said, "How many smoke alarms do we have?" And I said, "We have 3. He said, "Take them all down. Take down all the smoke alarms and throw them out." So I did, and that's why we have no smoke alarms in my house. Because we want to die peacefully in our sleep. The best way to die. There's a roundabout in Bagenalstown, in Carlow. You know what? I'm going to start a campaign to start pronouncing Bagenalstown as Bagenalstown. Because Bagenalstown sounds a bit... And everybody in the town calls it Minivjog anyway. Ask anybody in Bagenalstown what the name of the town is. And nobody knows. Even their own council doesn't know. Half of the things are called Bagenalstown and the other half are called Minivjog. Small Minna. So, let's screw it up. I pronounce it as Bagenalstown. So we go through Bagenalstown. We go back to Andrea's family. They live in a small Protestant village called Borris, where treason was invented. And on the way there, we go through a place called Bagenalstown. And there's a roundabout in Bagenalstown, and as far as I know, it's right in the middle of the town. And I think it's the only one in the town. And on Friday afternoon, every time, without fail, there's 2 or 3 cars just sitting there, waiting for someone to move. So if I'm driving, I'm just going to barrel on through. Now, I understand that's not accepted practice according to the RSA handbook, but I don't have all day. Like, who knows how long that tractor and that mud-flung Hyundai van have been staring at each other before we arrived, man. I'm going to barrel right through and I don't care. Because it's a sub-optimal situation. Don't they teach people how to handle roundabout? The roundabout is very simple. If there's something coming at you from the right, stay where you are. If there isn't something coming at you from the right, get on the roundabout. Not if you see someone coming from a mile away. They have to be on the roundabout and coming from the right. Yeah? Not if you see someone who might be coming on the right in about 10 seconds. No, get on the roundabout if that's the case. These things are designed to keep traffic flow constant. They're not designed to gum up an entire town just because you don't understand how it works. It's not rocket science. Is there something coming from the right that's actually on the roundabout? No. Okay, I'm going to go, and then indicate your exit. It's like one sentence of a rule. How could you screw that up? I don't know. Let's have a look at... I'm going to do this weekly events thing. So let's have a look at this weekly events thing. I'm a bit behind on this, but apparently there's a big man with tattoos called Conor McGregor, and he does fighting. He does fighting. And he's challenged a black man called Floyd Mayweather, who also does fighting, but a different kind of fighting. And at some point in the future, I think in August, they're going to meet each other and they're going to punch each other a bit and see who's the best at fighting. Right? And there was a thing because Conor McGregor said something racist. I don't know. Like, I assume these guys are professional fighters. So they're not going to get offended at racist comments. I mean, they punch each other for a living. They're hardly going to be, yeah, okay, I boxed the head off you, but could you just not use that kind of... I don't think so. I mean, I assume it's more of a psych-out battle than a racism off. They're looking for things that are going to get at the other guy. Like, that's what they're trying to do. So when you say, oh, that might bother him, that's offensive, that's a point. Although to me it is amusing that people are getting more upset over bad taste exercises of free speech than they are over the fact that two guys are literally going to punch the shit out of each other to see who's best at punching people. Like, that to me is the problem with this whole situation. Why... Ugh. That's my current affairs bit. My current affairs bit will be about 2 weeks out, because it takes me that long to think about something. Sorry. I talk fast but I think slow. Or maybe I think fast and I talk fast. Maybe, I don't know. Whatever. Here are the top 5 life regrets from people who later died. I guarantee it. 1. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. I am what I am. I am what I am. Sorry. Big fan of the Gloria Gaynor remix of that. Number 2, top 5 life regrets is I wish I didn't work so hard. Yeah, no one's ever wishing, wow, I wish I worked harder, are they? It all seems so unimportant when you have the clarity of hindsight. I wish I had this is the third one. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I really, really hate you, Deborah in accounts. Number 4 is I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I don't know. There's a lot to be said for adult friendships being summarized by people taking turns to cancel plans. I mean, presumably you would only do that if you had something better to do with your time, like staying inside and watching Netflix. I don't know. And the 5th one is, the 5th top life regret is I wish that I had let myself be happier. So apparently a whole bunch of people, so many that it's on the list here, are talking themselves into being miserable. I can't explain that and I'm not going to try. I don't even have a joke for it. Top 5 career regrets, also from people who would later go on to die. Career regrets. Number 1 is I wish I hadn't taken the job for the money. Number 2 is I wish I'd quit earlier. Number 3 is I wish I had the confidence to start my own business. Well, that's more of a... That's not so much of a regret as an aspiration. I wish I used my time at school more productively. Yeah, that's not... No, school's rubbish. And I wish I'd acted on my career hunches. Well, that's not good either. Because people tend to think that their intuition is golden, and man, it is not. Your intuition is not gold. No one's intuition is golden. Intuition is just your brain telling you this is the best guess. And making you think that it's something other than what it is. But it's not. It's just your brain working out the variables and telling you this is the best guess, which means it could be wrong, and intuition things are wrong all the time. My mother, when she was having me, was determined that I was a girl. And when I popped out, the nurses said, oh look, here he is now, he's grand. And she referred to me as she for like a day after I was born. So convinced was she that I was a girl. And I'm not. Not yet. I'm not a girl. So that female intuition was way off. Way. Whoa, my throat did a funny thing. Hang on. My mother's intuition was way off. That is so better. That clearer tone. I like that much better. I sound like the guy in Twin Peaks. Got a light. No. So things to regret. Forget about your hunches, man. Just use your brain and think about it. I wish I'd used my time at school more productively. It's difficult to give a shit about things that you know are pointless and stupid. I understand how I know it's say to students like study hard and do this and do that, but it's really hard to be motivated about something that you know for a fact is stupid and a pointless waste of time. And I think maybe it's to your credit, if you're 16 years old and listening to this, maybe it's to your credit that you figured it out that early, that things not worth your time are not worth your time. Maybe that's okay. So don't worry about that so much. The next one is I wish I had the confidence to start my own business. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. Some people like turning up and phoning it in. And if you want to own your own business, you cannot phone it in. You are in business 24/7. Because I ran my own business for 10 years. And you can't switch off. I used to go in after hours all the time. Just go in the night time just to make sure everything was okay and do some business and tidy up. So sometimes I'd wonder what it was like just not to do that. And then I realized that I have a serious problem with authority. Like no one's gonna tell me what to do or I'll start something. So that's the end of that. I had to run my own business or not work at all. I wish I'd quit earlier, of course. It's always good to know when to quit, but usually the information you need to know when to quit comes to you after the optimal quitting time. So how are you supposed to, in other words, how are you supposed to tell the future? No one can tell the future, so don't worry about it. I should have quit earlier. Yeah, maybe, but you didn't know at the time. So many things are like that. I should have done this, I should have done that. Yes, but the information you needed to reasonably come to that decision only came after the optimal time of decision. So don't worry about it. Do what you can and keep moving forward. And the first top 5 career regret, again, is I wish I hadn't taken the job for the money. Well, I'm no one to talk about that, but I really liked doing my job. I ran a jewellery shop, as anyone listening to this probably knows, and I really liked it, and I was good at it. And it worked. Like, the only reason I stopped is because I moved to America, and you can't run a shop from a different country. So I didn't do that. But I was good at it, and it was fun, and I liked it. I don't know. Those are the top 5 regrets, both career-wise and life-wise. And next, I will be looking at what is probably going to kill me. Okay, here we go. Things that will kill me. And you and everyone. I'm looking at a chart here from the CDC, which, as fans of The Walking Dead will know, is based in Atlanta, Georgia. And they do all the stat crunching for diseases and causes of death and so on in America. And because we're all kind of Western cultures, I think this will broadly apply over here and in Northern Europe and so on as well, places like that. Maybe not in Africa or Southeast Asia or whatever, but because we have the same kind of lifestyle, I think, roughly speaking. Here we go. Causes of death. That's me, I'm white, people. Hello. If you're aged 15 to 24 and you're a white person, this, by the way, excludes things outside your control like accidents and homicide. This is just things, I guess, that happen to you in particular. That's what it says here, by the way. I'm not sure what the cutoff point semantically is, but it says here, excluding uncontrollable events like accidents and homicide. I mean, I would... Surely cancer is uncontrollable. Anyway, never mind. Let's just go with the CDC on this. If you're aged 15 to 24, your number one cause of death is suicide. Oh, suicide. No, that's not. Okay. 25 to 34, your number one cause of death is also suicide. No, that's not. No, okay. If you're 35 to 44, that's me. Your number one cause of death is heart disease. All right, now we're talking. Now we're getting somewhere. Heart disease. Number two is cancer, and number three is suicide. If you're why are so many people killing themselves? Well, anyway, that's what it says here. Let's see. Hang on. If you're 15 to 24 and you're black, your number one cause of death is suicide. Asian suicide, Hispanic suicide, Native American suicide. And that pretty much. If you're black and you're 25 to 34, your number one cause of death is HIV. In America, by the way. This is just for the United States of America. Don't panic. Don't panic, Irish black people. You'll probably die of suicide. Oh God, this is yeah. Anyway, 35 to 44, I'm more likely to die of heart disease than anything else. Right. I can't say much about suicide because I've never been depressed and I never wanted to kill myself and I can't relate to it and it's not really I don't know what you call it, a health problem. It's not a physical health problem, it's a mental health problem, is it? I don't know. Um, I would say I'm in a very low risk group for suicide, let's put it that way. But apparently it's the number one killer of white people 15 to 24 and 25 to 34. And the third biggest killer of people in my age group. That's not good. That is not good. That is something we need to start looking at. If it's killing that many people. Heart disease. Well, as Michael Phelps said, the problem with heart disease is that the first symptom is often sudden death, and that's a very difficult symptom to deal with, which it is. Then in 45 to 54 age group, number one is heart disease, and in 55 to 64, praise Jesus, people stop trying to kill themselves, and it's number one heart disease, number two cancer, and number three respiratory disease. I should have looked at this map before I started talking about it because there is suicide all over it. That's men. That's just men, by the way. The women, a lot less suicide-y, but a lot more cancer-y. In general, I'm just looking at giving you the thingy. 15-24, so I suppose very young women. Number one suicide. Black, number one heart disease. Asian, number one suicide. Hispanic, number one cancer. Native American, number one suicide. For women. Very young Native American women, the thing that's going to kill them is suicide. But then the suicide lightens up and the cancer takes over, whereas the suicide is far more prevalent for men. But not me. I don't think so. I mean, obviously I can't tell the future, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening. But then they never do they? It's always a surprise. All I can tell you is I don't think I'm in the high risk group. I've never been depressed. I don't have any sort of stress or anything like that. I have no situation in my life that I feel cannot be dealt with. And anything that does happen to me, I have someone I can talk to about it. I don't think there's nobody I can talk to. So lucky me, right? According to this chart. Lucky me. Also, I don't have any substance abuse problems. I've heard that substance abuse problems, particularly with young men in Ireland, like there's a link between that and suicide. Now, clearly, if you're feeling miserable, you're going to hit the drugs. And it's not that you're hitting the drugs and then being miserable, but there's still a link. The drugs in this case being alcohol more than anything else. Alcohol counts as drugs. Sorry, wake up, people. Yeah. So, according to this, I'm going to die. If I died in the next few years, it would be of heart disease. And that would not surprise me at all. We need to start getting more exercise and eating right. I do the best I can to eat right, but I don't do the best I can to get some exercise. No, sir. I sit inside and type all day. So if I die of heart disease, do not be surprised. As I've already said, I think this is very funny. The first time I read it, I thought it was very funny. As I've already said, the problem with heart disease is the first symptom is often sudden death. And that is a difficult That's a difficult symptom to treat. So now you know, if I die, it's probably going to be heart disease. I mean, it feels fine to me, but I imagine it feels fine to everyone until it doesn't. And in the case of people my age group, with my skin colour, when it doesn't, you're dead. Alright, the next bit will be having a guess at what happens after you die. So if you're watching a movie or a TV show and you get a fade to black, you're asleep, you're unconscious. Well done. If you get a fade to white, you are dead. Sorry. But what happens afterwards? I don't know. I'm not religious at all. I'm an atheist, which just means I don't believe in any God or anything. But it doesn't preclude a belief in some kind of afterlife, which I also do not have. There's a whole... Hang on. Sorry, I felt my mouth coming up. Now, there's a whole industry built around near-death experiences, which is what happens when you die and you come back again. You're technically dead and you come back. Some people think that that's the proof of an afterlife because they experience things, they see things, and a lot of them see the same sort of thing. They talk about a tunnel of light, and they feel like they want to go down the tunnel, and when they get to the light, there's somebody there talking to them that they know, like their granddad or Gandhi or somebody, I don't know. But the fact that a lot of these experiences seem to align, I mean, it means something. It doesn't mean nothing, but it certainly doesn't mean that there is an afterlife. There's a minority who do not see the tunnel of light and so on. They just see darkness, and they're hanging on to a parallel bar like the Romanians in the Olympics. You know those things. They're hanging on to those, and they just stay there, and they don't want to drop. I mean, that to me seems like your brain kind of pulling a metaphor on you. But again, I don't know. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that, I suppose. There have been a lot of scientific, well, when I say scientific, I mean peer-reviewed and published in journals, right? These near-death experiences are called NDEs, because I'll be talking about them for the next few minutes. There's been many peer-reviewed scientific papers on these NDEs, but not single one of them, has even suggested that these NDEs are proof of an afterlife. And there's even a journal of near-death studies specifically dedicated to this kind of thing. And on their site, they say themselves that hang on, if I can just click it up here. There we go. There is no proof in a statistical sense that NDEs have anything to do with an afterlife, and there is no way to demonstrate whether this speculation is true. So they're just kind of sharing stories, you know. Some studies have shown the opposite. One in particular managed to demonstrate that the mammalian brain, albeit paradoxically, can generate neural correlates of the heightened conscious processing at near death. So, in other words, NDEs are very much a part of this life. Now, there's a neurosurgeon he used to make his living doing brain surgery. His name is Ibn Alexander. Dr. Ibn Alexander, I suppose we should call him. But he's a proper scientist. He's not a kook, you know. I mean, he wasn't. And he wrote a book called Proof of Heaven. And the gist is, you know, during a meningitis-induced coma, he saw heaven-related imagery, and as a result, the afterlife is real and so on. Now, he's a scientist. He's been through doctor school. He should appreciate, although recently, I have discovered that being a doctor means nothing. It doesn't mean that you're more likely to accept evidence that crushes your theory. But apparently you can make it through 6 years of medical school and not pick up on that. The theories should probably have some evidence backing them up, and if a new evidence presents itself to trash your theory, well then you better go and do an investigation of that new evidence. You don't start making up ridiculous reasons why your pet theory is true when you have new evidence. Check out the evidence. That's not what Dr. Eben Alexander did. He wrote a book called Proof of Heaven. The title Proof of Heaven. I feel like he's I feel like it's not a sincere investigation just from the title, but anyway. The central claim is that his brain had completely shut down and was therefore unable to produce hallucinations. The hallucinations, of course, being the obvious interpretation of this sort of thing. And again, the logical response to this would be that he had these hallucinations on the way out of his coma, which would necessitate his brain kicking in at some point by definition. Now, he doesn't like that definition, which is his right, but it's an odd position for someone who calls himself a neurosurgeon to take. As well as that, I mean, it's well known that when you're not conscious, your sense of time is unreliable. So, like, you can be dreaming for 20 seconds, and when you wake up, you think a whole epic has unfolded in your brain. You think days have passed in whatever dreamland you were in, but that's not 20 seconds. Most dreams are very, very quick. They're just that many seconds. So if you think you had a very big, long dream, you didn't. It just seems like that because your brain fed. You don't need to experience time when you're asleep, so your brain just tells you that the time passed. And instead of telling you using subtitles on your dream, it just tells you by giving you the feeling that a lot of time has passed. And it's odd that a neurosurgeon would not factor this into his story. The good news is that Esquire magazine printed an interview with Dr. Laura Potter, who does sound like a made-up name, but apparently she's real, and she was his doctor during his coma. And she says, in direct contradiction to Dr. Eben Alexander's, actually he sounds like a made-up name as well, doesn't he? Dr. Eben Alexander, in direct contradiction to his account, that he was, I'm quoting here again, conscious but delirious throughout his coma, which she says she deliberately put him into. And this is, again, he said it was a natural effect of his illness. But she said, his doctor said that she put him into that coma on purpose. Like I said above, it was meningitis induced, but actually the doctor put him in there, into that coma. And she said he was conscious throughout. So if you know anyone who's gullible enough to believe nonsensical gibberish just because it comes from someone with a degree in neurosurgery, please direct them to that Esquire article. You will be doing everyone a favour. See, sometimes that's the thing about science. Science is not scientists. So a scientist can say something that's total gibberish, and that's fine. It doesn't mean it's true. It's still subject to all the other stuff that we need to do to a thing to decide whether or not it's true. Right? Just because somebody very clever says something, that doesn't mean it's true. That's the whole point of science over religion. Because in a religion, if you believe this guy, let's say Jesus said something, then you're kind of on the hook for it. And you can make up, I suppose, I've seen people do flips and twists to try and make sense of some of the more obvious gibberish things that religious icons have said, but it's still gibberish. Like, some things don't make any kind of sense at all, and that's, doesn't matter. You can still take the things that do make sense and work on that. But science is a process. It's a method you apply to incoming information to see, whether you can rely on it. And it doesn't matter who says it. Like, as an atheist, sometimes people say to me, oh, if Richard Dawkins said blah blah blah, you'd just believe it, wouldn't you? No. Like, if Richard Dawkins said we should now be all against gay marriage, like, I would tell him to go fuck himself. But I'll believe all the rest of the stuff he says if it turns out to be true, Whereas I think if someone you've identified as a god says something unpleasant about gay marriage, you'll kind of just roll along with it. Although if your god turns out to hate all the same kind of people that you do, that's suspicious. I would be very suspicious of a god who agreed with all my opinions. I'd be like, that's a coincidence, isn't it? You mean you hate these guys too? Okay. And what about? Oh, really? Well, that's a coincidence, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, what are the chances that the guy who invented the entire universe would agree with my opinions on everything? Slim? None? I don't know. But as an atheist, of course, I believe that all gods are the product of human imagination, so to me it makes total sense. It's the only way it could happen. So yeah, I don't know what happens after death, and neither do you, and neither does anybody else. People don't like talking about death or thinking about it, but like everything else, and especially awkward stuff, the key is to be honest and try not to use circuitous or distancing language. Just say what you mean. On Sesame Street, the actor playing Mr. Hooper died. His name was Will Lee. And Mr. Hooper died. So the people who make the program, they decided to take the opportunity to teach kids about death. And they did the most wonderful, effective job that I've seen in a long time from anyone. This is how you explain death to children in an honest manner. Because there's nothing worse than the sort of euphemistic gibberish you hear from people about death. He passed on. No, he died. You know, he's gone to a better place. What, Disneyland? No, he's dead. Stop lying to people. Stop lying to yourself. This stuff is very important. Do not lie about it. I'm going to leave a link to the clip on Sesame Street. It's actually on another part of my YouTube channel. It's got 400,000 views. I'm not sure what that means or if it's relevant. I just felt like saying it because it's a big number. So I'm going to link that in the bottom. And I'm also going to link to the interview of Dr. Eben Alexander's Dr. Laura Potter. I'm going to put a link to the interview that she gave also in the little description, and the Sesame Street bit, and that's it. So, not many jokes today, but a lot about death. But now I can slough off all that and just be nothing but happy clappy all the time. That's not going to happen. Sorry. As ever, if you like it, tell your friends. If you don't like this podcast, if you don't like the things I'm saying, please tell everybody you know. And I am out.